Like you read my mind. Hey, everybody! Welcome to D&D After Dark, where we do military-style AARs to our game session, and hopefully find 3 things we did right, 3 things we did wrong, and finally convince somebody to put handcuffs on Benny the gnome. Joining me is Chaos Actual Nick Cole. How are you, sir?
I'm wonderful. It's good to be here with all my Friday night friends. We missed you guys last week. Now we're back, and we have a new attitude.
Do we really?
Maybe.
it sounded good in all the promotional material.
Maybe we're all greater. Yeah, I think earlier today I arrived at philosophy after listening to a show about a certain political movement, and I decided that I'm just now going to probably shout, "No one cares, work harder," about everything in my life. And I'm probably going to use it a lot at the coffee house, and they're not going to understand it. There's going to be an incident, but I think we've reached that point in our society, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Who's with me?
No, I'm with you.
I'm with you.
No, JR.
I'm the original work harder guy. Come on.
Yeah. Damn Skippy.
Wait, are you trying to like jump in and patent breathing techniques all over my new philosophy? Yeah. First off, yours says nobody cares. Mine says no one cares.
That's
See,
true.
mine's much better. Also, it's said by me, a known pirate, and pirates saying things are always better than anybody else. So.
Yeah, but how many HR departments have given you crap for having that poster behind you?
No, not yeah. It's been an ongoing thing. I liked screaming it at JR until I realized that it might be damaging his psyche. Yeah, because he's always like, "This thing's going on in my life, and this thing, no one cares. Work harder." You know.
Yeah.
It's. I feel that people are about to. I feel that people are about to embrace that. Like, there's going to be 2 Americas now: the America that embraces that philosophy and actually makes it through this, and the America that just goes fetal and says, I just need UBI, I need to be taken care of, all this kind of stuff. But I feel like if we just all start screaming, and if I really say to somebody, if I ever complain about how awesome it is to get to play D&D with everybody on Friday, or write books, or be married to Nicole, please say, "Hey, I need you real quick. I need your phone number," and I'll be like, "Sure, here's my phone number," and then you just scream over the phone, "Nobody cares. Work harder."
Like you should, almost like a personal assistant genie.
Yeah, exactly. Because you need that as a writer too. You need that to say no, because you can read nice reviews and you can read bad reviews, but the main thing you got to do is you got to make your deadlines. And if you don't make your deadlines, then no one cares. So.
See, the thing is, hunger is a really good motivator, but the problem is, once you've actually gotten sufficiently successful that hunger isn't really an issue anymore, you got to find other things to motivate yourself. Yeah.
Well, I have those. You have a big brain job in your life, so you're gonna. But this is all I have. It's either this or mercenary. And at 52, I'm getting a little old for mercenary. So I got this, but I know that my time is limited, with the things that I say and inadvertently say, I am always just one step away from graduation. So I have.
You're not the one who's getting banned. I'm the guy who's always getting banned here.
Yeah. Well, that's because he doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't write it all out in big long posts. He takes snapshots, so it takes a long time for the algorithm to catch up. And
when they ban you at Facebook, why should we ban him? And he's like, well, he's Jewish. Oh yeah, of course, ban him.
Yeah, exactly.
I just had a fight with Facebook last week because they banned me from posting any live videos. And I was like, so it took me 3 days to get a hold of somebody to try and mitigate the request. Why? And they linked it back to a post that 15 other people had shared that I just clipped and pasted and whatever. And I said, well, these other 15 can still post live video. Why is it just me? And they said, well, we don't have an answer for this. You still have 18 days left on your ban. I'm like,
it means you're friends with too many Galaxy's Edge people.
Yes. Oh my God! And speaking of a friend of Galaxy's Edge, we have Michael Rothman. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Haven't been banned today, so
the night is still early on your side of the world.
That's right.
We have Jesse, who came in and guest starred as Richardson. How you doing, sir?
Doing good.
Excellent. And of course, we have Sparky DMing the sister channel with the Eastern Ruin. Is that what it's called?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Thanks for showing up. So we started off a little bit slow because I wanted to, in the beginning of the game today, I wanted to see like if you guys needed healing spells, anything like that, locking and loading another rip it into your mouth hole, but there was, you guys were like, no, we're good. Let's just get to the action. Yeah. And that's what happened.
To be like, don't you want to do something?
And Benny wanted to snort the nuclear waste or something.
Oh my God.
I'm like, okay, whatever.
So yeah, you guys started investigating your surroundings a little bit, but then the Rangers were coming in and saying, "Hey, we're at the back door, or we're on the porch. Can you let us in?" And that kind of started working. What did you guys think when that big elevator opened and you had to start dealing with Rangers and flight crew coming in?
I really wish I had a machine gun. Oh, they're dead.
Sorry, I dropped there.
Right.
I was getting some lag. Am I getting lag now?
You sound amazing, so I don't know if you're lagging. Say something witty.
Well, all my neighbors just got vaccinations, so I think it's screwing with my 5G.
Oh, that's brilliant. So what did you think, Nick, when the Rangers started sliding into the open space down there?
I was emotionally erect.
He wasn't the only one.
Rangers sliding down into anything, with hover blades and helicopters and it's getting real. That's as good as it gets. That is the essence of Forgotten Ruin. As we go into book 4 in Forgotten Ruin, I'm kind of hoping to work that scene in, because the Rangers are going to need some other military outfit unit down in North Africa.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I love those kind of scenes, and I'm excited about that. I think I discovered today in working on book 3 that I hope people dig this part, but we're gonna put in at the end of the book the first chapter of the Book of Skelos, which is found within book 3, and it kind of talks about how the first chapter of the Book of Skelos tells how the ruin got the way the ruin is. So I think people will like that. But what will probably happen is they'll say, this part was gay, more Rangers, please. And then somehow they'll manage to draw a dick on that review. So,
which is oh my God. It's so neat to be able to see chapters as they're coming out, but then you can't talk about any of it, which kind of sucks balls.
So here's a question to you. Here's a question to you, Nick. So on your books, obviously you've got this entire thing where it's set up where you've got the world, but it's the world as it is in the future, and obviously there's different backgrounds for every continent and everything else. So has it always been kind of the plan where book to book you're going to eventually start exploring all the different continents and experiencing just are they going to be very much the same or very much different, or is there going to be any resemblance to what if you're exploring China? Are you actually going to see Chinese military or remnants of it, that kind of stuff?
I think what the funny thing when we were first conceiving this is we wanted to keep it in the Mediterranean and Northern Europe and Northern Africa, because that's where the main storyline for these Rangers take place.
Right.
But we were like, because we were doing that early author thing, like, hey, what we could do? We could franchise out the other continents to everybody. And, we could sell someone in China and they could do for China and everything like that. But that would be a colossally bad idea, because you'd be answering like a million questions a day, and then there'd be canon problems and stuff like that. So the truth of it is like, we're gonna, in the main story arc, what we're gonna do is we're gonna stay right in that geographical area I just described. Sergeant Thor is gonna have his own novel, 3-book trilogy that's gonna be coming up at the end of this series, where he leaves the Rangers in Northern Africa and he goes into basically the Middle East. The Middle East suffered a major fracture. If you look at the map and everything like that, there's a place called Umnoth that looks like Mordor, and that's really Turkey and the Black Sea. And that's where this being basically entered the normal time. Like everything in Forgotten Ruin is sort of like coming from Earth, except 2 entities. One, well, 3 entities, but we won't talk about the 3rd entity. One entity is the Nether Sorcerer, who definitely seems to be like a Sauron-like being, but is most likely otherly of sign. I'll just leave that as vague so I don't ruin the entire series for you. And then dragons came from somewhere else also. And so they haven't been in Forgotten Ruin the whole time. And what happened in the Middle East is like, it basically began, they're like, if you ever read the Stephen King Gunslinger series, where there were thinnies and things like that, and that's what happened to the Middle East. Iran and Israel and that whole area, suddenly, like, they were big trade caravans, which they've always been, between the East and the West. And the reason there's not a lot of trade anymore between China and Central Europe is this area is now very weird. And Sergeant Thor is going to go in and kind of get to play around in that weirdness. And then we have another novel called The Delta Kings, which is going to explain those guys.
Oh God, just take my money.
And then Walt's writing a novel. Yours is set in Skeletos or around Greece or Italy, I forget. Around Caspia, right?
If you say so.
Yeah, I forget the details. You don't say much about it anymore. Maybe it's faded away.
That's because I've been behind the scenes doing like 15 other things.
Yeah, I ain't got time to write, but work hard. Like other, no one cares to work hard. Hard. I think what we're developing in the campaign definitely could be novelized and set. Some there. Walt will sometimes ask me for like, hey, what do you think should be here? And I'll say, I think this thing would be cool. And he either uses it or doesn't use it. But I think he's taken things and run with it. So like, I would say the Caribbean and Latin America and North America are very fleshed out. It's kind of, I'm a big, yes and, open creation person. And so, if ideas are good enough, let's develop them together and make them live and breathe. And I think it'd be kind of fun to get into Africa and Southeast Asia. China and Russia are kind of boring, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing is that if nothing else, the nice thing about portal stories and stuff like that are that inevitably you have some pieces that a reader can relate to and then go, okay, it's like this, but different, Right. So you're starting from a place that you know something about. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm in Russia. But what's different? It's like, oh, everything's different, but let's go figure this out.
Yeah.
So you kind of have a mental mind, bearings on where you're at.
Yeah, and you have to get into the other large component of this, which is the fantasy aspect, and it is the fantasy advanced. And so I think that's what might be cool about getting into the first chapters of the Book of Skelos, is to kind of give people an idea like how someone starts turning into a minotaur or an ogre or a were-tiger or whatever it is. But then the other cool aspect about Forgotten Ruin is the military unit. And so like right now we're dealing with Rangers and everything like that. We actually have plans to bring in a World War II unit and a Mac VSOG unit from Vietnam. But the other people that are writing, Wargate novels, that are doing it, kind of developing their own world and everything like that, they're making up their own military units, or I'm not making them up, drawing on known military units. And I think Mike Massa, who's doing a novel for us, I think he's actually using the French Foreign Legion. And so, when I thought he would kind of no-brainer go for a seal, but then he read Forgotten Ruin when we were so hard on seals, it destroyed him. So I don't know.
No, but I was gonna say, just bring it back to the D&D game here. Is what I like, where Walt's, we haven't seen it in a while, but we're still seeing hints of it. Is kind of like the reader's experience of, or the players in this case, experience of changing from something to something you don't know. And Nick, you mentioned it, it's like becoming a Minotaur. Okay, that would be a cool thing to read. Yeah, so and a cool thing to experience in the game. So.
Interesting thing that.
But
there's a lot of stuff that you guys are seeing. When I go to Nick and I'm like, all right, here's what I'm thinking. He'll go, but what if, and I mean, that's how you guys ended up with the voodoo dwarves.
Yeah.
And although you haven't played with them because you haven't gone into the interior of North America, you guys kind of hung to the coast. There's a huge culture of like minotaurs in the middle of America, kind of like just roaming and nomadic, and they're having
noble
problems.
And free.
Yeah, that's a novel idea. But and then there was where is it? I have it. I have my cool little notebook that drives everywhere with me. But then in Central America, we might have the Nakhalan, the Great Ogre Tours.
Yeah, that's right. The Ogre Tours.
Which was just a weird conversation. And then it was like, imagine like, what if Ogre Tours? And I'm like, this, and then I don't sleep for 2 days because now my brain won't shut off.
It's kind of funny, like once you get rid of like you get the initial, like, I would say Forgotten Ruin in Europe is very standard Tolkien-esque. It's very like, these are elves, these are dwarves, these are orcs, and then there's some weird D&D monsters. But then like once you went to an area, it was kind of fun to like, let's make voodoo dwarves, let's make Native American minotaurs, let's make ogre tours. Like the weird factor definitely went to the next level. And North America seems like it will be a much funkier, weirder place, and probably far more interesting. Once sort of like, if people like their fantasy sort of like next level, it feels like to me North America is the place. Like I think what we didn't like when we were initially writing these books, we didn't want to lose the Galaxy's Edge audience by being too weird, and we wanted to attract the fantasy audience. So we tried to keep it kind of straight down the middle of the road, but with some interesting twists and things like that.
I mean, because you could almost imagine in America, we have a large history of and whether people know any details of it, they know of Native Americans, let's say. Yeah. So and there's all sorts of lore and gods and everything else that are part of the D&D pantheon that could come into play, and you could imagine stuff like that coming up, and those guys are kind of like the original guerrilla fighters. It's like, So
the fun thing is to reverse engineer it or forward engineer it from, okay, you have a nanoplague sweeping the earth in present day, and it's rewriting people's DNA, and it's changing people. And yes, I know this bothers your science brain, Brosnan, but let's just say you get a really bad flu and suddenly you're
dead.
And it's definitely been tailored towards like certain people and certain groups, because somebody who's this chick named Spider Queen, she had a definite axe to grind against society. And so, so you take the Native American minotaurs and you say, okay, it's 10,000 years later, or whatever, how many thousands of years later, how did they end up establishing a nation? Why are there more minotaurs than other things? And you have to account for 10,000 years. You can't just say, well, she just loved America so much, she decided to make everybody bulls. And you're like, well, maybe not. Maybe, she identified a reason why she wanted to turn this one city predominantly minotaur, because she thought, you have to take the essence of a minotaur. What's a minotaur? It's a bull. It lives inside a maze. She definitely had this fantasy construct mind. Why did she turn everybody in Texas into a minotaur? And then why did they suddenly come to believe in Native American superstitions opposed to their regular religions, and then you could kind of write that out. Like, well, they had one guy that knew that they kind of needed a unifying theory to there were all these tribes of Minotaurs. They were facing external oppression from let's make up a new monster, and they fought these big battles all throughout the Southwest. And then the Minotaurs began to gain a foothold, but they never crossed the Sierra Nevadas because, you know, California is all hippy dippy elves that are all high on mushrooms.
Of course it is.
They kind of like, they have a lot of Korean and Chinese influence. So they're hippy dippy Korean kung fu elves, and they're really badasses, except they're high all the time. And also because with no major irrigation now from the Colorado River, California is pretty much just a big desert. No one wants it anyways.
So here I've got another question. This is a D&D and book question. So D&D is, so I've been playing more lately, with family and whatever, but it played a lot before. And D&D actually, no, they haven't. They've actually gotten pretty lucky.
Okay.
But most of these campaigns, there's no real goal. You get to a point and you've discovered everything. But these are like multi-day, multi-week, month campaigns. And that's kind of like what we're doing. We always have a goal that's like, all right, we know where we're going immediately. We have no idea long-term goal. What in the world's going? What are we doing 6 months from now? Who knows? But we know immediately where we're going. So, do you have envisioned in the Forgotten Ruins stuff an end?
Me or Walt?
You, Nick.
Oh, me, Nick. Yeah. The first season, which will be 6 books, the Rangers will end up in a specific place. And that'll be kind of explained more in this book that's coming out now, Violence of Action, where they end up in a very specific, and like the whole thing about their journey is they show up in a fight for their lives. And then the second book is they have to respond to defending their new home. So those are 2 things that Rangers don't really do in real life. Like Rangers don't do defense. Right. And they're not big, well, they do a lot of escape and evasion and survival and stealth and everything like that. But the first book, and it makes it clear in the first book, this is not the Ranger mission. They don't do these things. They do raids. They do hit and runs. They do like Air Force seizure and things like that. Book 3 is really the Rangers doing what the Rangers do, which is they go and assassinate a high value target. That's what they do. But they were had the most success in Afghanistan of any SF unit doing those things. But what's going to happen in book 3 is they're going to be offered, and what they don't know that they're doing in book 3 is they're definitely choosing a side. They think that they're just wiping out a major villain because that villain is threatening their FOB, their castle. But what's really happening is they're getting fully involved on the side that kind of needs a lot of help. And then they have to kind of see how far they're willing to go. And there's definitely a strike that they can make there are 3 major enemies within the Forgotten Ruin. One is called the Black Prince. Think, basically Germany, werewolves, Nazis, vampires, things like that. Then there's Umnoth, the Nether Sorcerer. So that's basically Sauron. And then there are Lich Pharaohs down in Egypt. And those 3 are in kind of a rough alliance against basically what's left of human civilization. And the Rangers in book 3 will be offered the choice. Are you going to get involved? Because humanity is probably not going to make it much farther. And of course, the Rangers are going to get involved. And the first season takes them to taking out one of those major targets.
Cool.
Yeah. And then if people like it, and they're like, oh, we want more, then we do the big War of the Ring, which will be battle against the other 2 targets. And then, what does that bring us to? That brings us to about 30 books. I don't, will people really be interested in after that? I don't know. If they will, right now. All right, forever, but I don't know. You're only as good as your.
Where's my wallet?
Yeah, you're only as good as your last book. Like two, and that's you always got to think that. You've always got to swing for the cheap seats and everything, and you've never, and so you're just trying to it's interesting. The pre-orders on Hidden Fade, Jason, I'm talking about this afternoon, were 11 1,100. Is that right? 1,100, and then the pre-orders on Violence of Action are 1,300. And generally, whenever you write a book, book to book, you like in the first, like book 1 to book 2, you see like a 20% loss of your audience because 20% just doesn't follow you. But between book 2 and 3, you only see a 10% loss of your audience, because generally after that, every sequel,
right, they're hooked.
They're hooked. But what we're seeing, at least in the pre-orders, is the audience size actually increased. So it's interesting. I think it is actually a phenomenon book. I'm seeing a lot of my fellow authors begin to like, I'm getting into fantasy. Oh, I'm going to do these military things, or people will write me and they're like, I have this idea to do this. And I'm like, great. I think Wargate fiction, which is what Forgotten Ruin is kind of, it's going to be a hot genre for about 18 months, and then something new will come along.
Star Fox Hero SJ just said, I literally threw my wallet at the screen as you were describing this.
Like as long as each one is worth the next one. But I know the way that Jason and I do things, we always want it to be like that. So I think book 3 will be interesting. It's a little different in certain flavors, but I think it'll have everything everybody wants. I'm concerned about throwing in that Book of Skelos, but I think the true believers will like it. And then book 4, 5, and 6, we get into the big story of, let's see how much damage the Rangers can do against a global power.
Speaking from personally, the Book of Skelos, I've been deeply fascinated and curious about that ever since you first mentioned it, because one of the questions that I've been brewing over for a while, like the nature of the SAR and the nature of the nanovirus and what various people became and why, and that's something that's kind of I'm running into in my own campaign. There are certain factors that, if Sanokin wasn't here, I would talk about it. But I'm kind of curious at what. I know you're still there, and also know my girlfriend's watching, and these questions are tied to her character. So, but yeah, the whole nature of the SAR and the nanovirus, and why things become what they do. I'm really curious about that. It was funny.
The first scroll that you get in book 3 is going to explain, okay, how did the world begin to change, and how did people start to change, and what is the nature of the nanovirus, and then it definitely does hint towards the SAR and things like that. But those will come in like separate chapters or scrolls that we'll try to put at the end of each book, or we might take advantage of Kindle Fella and then start basically just dropping chapters there. I don't know, but we'll see how people respond to this, and if there's a lot of I hate this, more Rangers, and more is so long, then we'll just do more.
It was funny. A couple of weeks ago, we were actually talking on our kind of after show about what various people, what they may have become in the Ruin. What would Bill Clinton have become in the Ruin? And that led to Monica Lewinsky, and then it got all very political.
You're doing it exactly. That is exactly like that. Like, you now understand the Ruin. Like, take any person now, and it's fun. It's more fun to take monsters and people we hate, like Nancy Pelosi, and then just turn her, or okay, Orange Man, whatever you want, whatever person you hate in life, turn them into a monster, which is like kind of what fiction and literature and parody did for so long. If you go back and look at like the British magazine Punch and stuff like that, they would often take their political people that they were making fun of, and they would monsterify them.
Now, to answer your question, Bill Clinton would turn into a rat.
What about Monica Lewinsky?
A succubus.
Yeah.
That's a little on the nose.
I think
too easy.
From people I know who have encountered Bill Clinton in real life, I would say he's actually a vampire.
No, he's he's very, very, very charismatic. From many
he can seduce you, like people I know.
Yeah.
They said he seduces you with his eyes. Like when he talks to you, he makes you feel like the center of the world. Well,
I'm in Arkansas. I've heard that too.
Yeah. How would a vampire get its victims? You know, it would do that. What does he do? He you know, okay, let's believe all the conspiracy theories. Like, there's a trail of dead bodies from the Clintons since like 1980. Like, that is not in dispute. You know, so like, he's most likely a vampire. You know,
Charisma of 20 or whatever.
Yeah, he's starting to kind of look like Gary Oldman's impression of Vlad the Impaler. You know, so I don't know, but like, you know, what's Nancy Pelosi? She's a hag. You know, okay, how would the Spider Queen turn into a hag? But then you can play the fun part.
I was thinking more harpy, but
yeah, a harpy. What are the powers though? And that's the kind of fun thing. You know, she gets a flu, and then suddenly she's like in the Capitol dome. And remember, the nanopart begins to take apart all of society, and it also at the same time, as you'll find out in the Book of Skeletons in later chapters, it actually begins to create adventures too. It begins to create monsters in caves and strange things and it also begins to, from the get-go, create magic items. And people sort of like, as there are more monsters in the world, now begin to form bands of quote unquote adventurers. And the Book of Skelos is about the first band of adventurers, and it's centered around this CIA guy who turns into a half ogre.
Captain Kilgosha wants to know, is Walt in the novels as a monster? Is Walt in the novels as a monster? I think Walt, in a lot of the ways, is just like all the Rangers, man. So are the Rangers monsters? I don't know.
Represent the 75th.
Yeah, we were. We were monsters.
We were monsters.
There's what was
depends on which side you're on.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, Walt's one of the Rangers because he's a Ranger, and he's our lead informer. So yeah, I mean, but the Rangers are monsters. I mean, like, sometimes I'll look at the language I'm using, like how many times they use the word murder happily, you know, with Rangers, and I know that there's this whole sort of like group of people like, oh, you know, like, you know, there's people that can get offended, like, you're saying that, you know, the military murders people and stuff like that, and I'm like, it's murder as, I don't know how to describe it, like, maybe
good
Walt
way
can articulate it for me, but yeah, it's like
some
murder,
things deserve to be murdered.
Yeah, like bad things deserve to be murdered, and certain people are very happy about that murder. Take any awful person right now, like, you know, today we had a drive-by shooting on a freeway, and a 6-year-old boy got shot.
Oh my God!
And killed. You know, and it was a road rage shooting. Like, does anybody for a second not think the guy who did that shouldn't just be happily murdered right now? Like, no grace, no mercy. I mean, like, I'm not a big believer in the laws of society where you get to do that shit in 5 years, you're out. You know, like, you should know not to deploy your weapon into someone's car and kill a 6-year-old kid who was just starting out in life. And there are worse things, and we won't go there. But, you know, the thing that's missing from our society right now is the concept of good and evil, good guys and bad guys. And the truth of it is there are good guys and bad guys. And the best way to know that there are bad guys is to watch that Russian recruitment video of those soldiers, you know, that was transposed against, you know, our social justice, you know, chick.
Oh God!
But nothing was more evil than those Russian soldiers. And the intent of that ad was, you know, we're about to do very hard things, and even right now, they're invading the Ukraine, and even though the news isn't talking about that, they're shelling the hell out of civilian neighborhoods in the Ukraine. Russians are bad people, and if more of them were croaked, it would be a good thing. Palestinians are bad people. They need to be croaked too. Anybody who goes around just throwing rockets at people, or like the Chinese, basically, who admitted this week to unleashing a bioweapon on the entire world and profiting from it, those are bad people. Murdering them happily is not wrong. It is not. I said this in Old Man Wasteland. It is not wrong to hate evil. It is not wrong to hate wrong. That's not wrong. It's wrong to go around and hate, you know, something that, you know, is that you could have a description. You can say, you know, oh, is this no, but when you go and you hurt people with no provocation, or you do these things, or you aggress for greed or whatever, and it's one thing soldiers to fight soldiers, that's never wrong or evil. But when you start making war on civilian populations, that's where we cross the line into evil. And that needs to be happily murdered, in my opinion.
And there's such a thing as righteous violence.
Yeah.
Sometimes it has to be done.
It was a thing, that came about in the Iraq war, but it's just war theory, and people don't like that now, and it's not popular. But, the truth of the matter is like it was put today. You need hard men to do hard things. That is just a fact of life. And those people carve off a piece of their soul so that you can say all the nutty shit you get to say tonight on the internet. And you may not like that, but that's that. And if you don't think right now that there are not tribes of monsters in this world who think that you're monsters. And I even think it crosses the line. I think that when you look at some of these really hardcore jihadist units who have a saying that says, first we kill the Saturday people, then we kill the Sunday people. Do you know what that means? That means first we kill the Jews, then we kill the Christians. That's not making war geopolitically. That's making war against someone's belief system. That's not right.
Nope.
You see a lot of that too in as Forgotten Ruin kind of progresses.
Yeah, that's why she turned him into orcs. Spoiler.
But like I had talked to you in the middle of the week, and I saw a couple of chapters that will be coming up, and people will get to read. And I was like seriously affected by these two chapters. I mean, the first thing in Forgotten Ruin that really hits you is, I knew it was all real when I started dreaming in Elvish.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a great opening. But like, here I am, I'm like, I'm knee deep into like serious workload for a week. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to take this time. I'm going to read these Forgotten Ruin chapters. I'm going to mark them up with a bunch of notes and send them back. And like, there was a section of it where it delves into what it means to be a monster. Yeah. And like what somebody views you at versus how you view yourself kind of deal. And I wrote you back. I was like, dude, like, wow. Cause I mean, seriously, it was one of those things where you don't really think about what does the monster think of itself, and not so much so of like, oh, I'm the hero of my own story kind of deal, but like serious self-reflection of, hey, all I really wanted was this. And you're just like, oh my God, I was broken for like the entire day. I was like, this is fantastic. So I think that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I learned that from Alec Guinness, who had to play Hitler one time. And he said, you don't play Hitler as Hitler. Otherwise it's just kind of one. No, Hitler's a pretty bad figure and everything like that. And you have to walk that line of like over empathy with the enemy or bad people, because then you're doing this sympathy for the devil thing. And that's really like modern storytelling. Like Lost would do that a lot. They would say like, here's this horrible person. Now let us tell you about his fucked up childhood and why you were a bigot to think he was bad. And that's an easy trick to make people feel awful. So I don't think you should do it with every villain, because I think there are some really bad villains. But like occasionally you can take the monster and show the monster's point of view. And something I learned sometimes helping people who are kind of like monsters in society, and I don't mean that like in the classic sense, but like they have monster-like aspects that they're, and I'm going to say this in a really strange way, just go with me. Sometimes people who are disabled, or who are down on their luck or whatever, they're kind of like monsters in society. They're cast out. They only go out at night because that's when they're most comfortable and they can't be viewed. There's a lot of shame. And when we watched all those ABC after school specials, and like the blind kid just wanted to be loved, and and he actually had a lot of wisdom and everybody loved him. Like you'd watch these shows where the person with a disability was actually the wisest person in the thing. And I thought that was how it would be when I would help certain people like that. What I learned a lot of the times is that people who are hurt or disabled, I think Bob already knows this from dogs, that they can be vicious. Like they can drown you if you let them. and everything. Like they're hurt and they want to hurt the world back. And if you kind of don't help them through that or whatever, they can consume you, and that's the danger of monsters. But the monster is a monster for a certain reason, and it has a certain point of view, and it doesn't get up in the morning and say, I'm a monster and I want to do evil. The monster gets up every morning and says, I have emotions and feelings and I want to survive. And as a good writer, you've got to advocate effectively for that monster.
No, I mean, and that's why I think doing like, I probably would never, just because it's just too weird, and I think people would be turned off by it. But like, if I were to ever write like Hitler as a character, it's very easy to imagine how I would write him, because he has this overwhelming love for animals and vegan and all this other nonsense. But at the same time, he truly hated a lot of humanity and felt himself different and better and everything else. So you could, and both of those were motivated from virtues in his mind. And, so he never sees himself as doing bad. And he has some genuinely, aspects of him that you can see are admirable, maybe, the whole animal love thing, whatever. But he also loves, to destroy, genocide, etc. Those are loves too.
Yeah,
we may not see it that way.
If you look at the devil, whether people believe it or not, and you say, okay, the devil is like, I'm not saying the devil is the source of all evil or anything. I actually think human beings do quite capably well on their own with that. They don't need the devil. But let's just say the devil has created a lot of the things, or made sure that those things are there to destroy humanity, and has had active plans to destroy humanity. Well, the first thing that the devil's going to say, when he's finally tried and accused, is he's going to say to humanity, yeah, but I brought you fire, because Prometheus is sort of an explanation of what the devil did. The people say that the Prometheus legend is really about the devil, and that without Prometheus bringing humanity fire, humanity is just animals living and, sort of just eating sushi, not actually cooking their meat. And the devil is going to sit there and say, but, for all the evil I did, look at how great your society is. Am I really that bad? Well, yeah, you're an insane person. But he can make that argument. And there's a certain amount of morons that are going to fall for that. That's why Sauron has a mouth of Sauron and a bunch of orcs. Because they're, he doesn't go around like, I'm Sauron, I'm evil. And like, everybody's like, oh, like some people listen to those excuses and find, with the monster, they find, I think like Disney always does that, where the villain's really awful and horrible to everybody, and you kind of wonder why they have henchmen.
I mean, there's a lot of people who will believe a lot of stupid shit, and and not to bring politics into it, but anyone who sends 3,000, 3,000 rockets, into neighborhoods and stuff, because of some rental agreement dispute, is largely not probably on the side of the angels. But you have a large set of the population that says evil is not them, it's the others. It's the no. This is David versus Goliath, and these guys are David. It's like, well, but David's the one who started it, in this case. What are you talking about? It's like,
I mean, humanity is always going to be tribalized, and it's always going to try to croak each other. And I think when utopianists come in and say, and you saw that, like, I think someone posted this week, going back to DnD, they posted the new how to kind of run Ravenloft in 5e.
No! I saw that.
Yeah, you saw that. Like they took out all the gothic horror elements, from describing somebody as a monster to sort of like the damsel in distress. And these are all verboten now, and you're told that that's not how you play correctly.
Something that's why we saw such popularity in the mid part of the early aughts and of the 2000s of properties that were independent properties, such as 30 Days of Night. So if you've ever read the comic, the very first movie was very, very closely tied to that first comic, because for so long we've had sparkly vampires and pretty Victorian vampires who were running around the New World, and it was all about, like sex and analogies to sex and stuff like that. But then 30 Days of Night came along. And it really didn't make a big splash at the theater, but the comics did. In the comic book world, 30 Days of Night was like a lightning rod. And, it sparked a lot of great ideas in people, because it was the first time that somebody said, no, wait a minute. These are monsters, and kind of reignited the fear of these things. Like, oh, you're a vampire? You're so misunderstood. And it's like, no, these predators come along during the longest night of a Alaskan winter, and use the near 30 days of darkness to prey on an entire town for the entire 30 days, not because they're looking for the great love of their life, or or anything like that. They're looking for their next meal, and you're it.
Yeah, and that's if you go back to it, that's why we all played D&D when we were little, because it was about, like, they're little boys, and I can't speak for little girls, but I think there's a lot of little girls, same thing too. But like, when you're little, you love to be scared by stuff, and you love monsters. I write a book of monsters, movie monsters, and you love that stuff. And so D&D was just like the extension of that. But if you're gonna take all those things out, then what are you really doing with D&D anymore? If you can't go whale on stuff because nothing's bad anymore, then I guess the last thing you're left with, and this is the big clue about utopianists, is they believe that power is truth. Like, if you have power, then that's truth. That is the truth. Like, whatever you decide it is, that's the truth. And if you take away, like they did in D&D, alignment, the struggle of good and evil, and then finally monsters, which is what they're working on. No one's a monster. They just choose to be that way. Then the D&D that you're playing is just about robbing people, which is power. Power is truth. And is anybody going to kind of do the math on that and say, if I'm not out here smiting evil, and I'm not fighting monsters that are terrorizing society, or I'm not engaging in tribalized warfare, then really what I'm doing is just mugging people.
See, that's the thing. That's the thing, is because I can always see just the things that I've read over the years. But like, for instance, Anne Rice wrote the Lestat books, where she all about vampires. And to me, I can easily see a vampire being kind of standing on both ends of the spectrum with regards to, are they a monster? You can imagine them as human, but with a curse, essentially. So you could see them playing that, that role and going either way, but they're cursed, essentially. But at the same time, if you're really going to play monsters and you're going to have orcs, or you're going to have other things, there's that, animals are feral. There are creatures that have instincts that are overwhelming any other, our view of good. So, in our sensibility, there are monsters out there, and if they're not, and if you don't see them as monsters, then you're not really looking at even today's world. I mean, there are monsters out there. You want to go swim with a bunch of alligators? See how long that lasts.
Well, until you're at whatever WokeCon, and the animal rights people stand up and say point of privilege. Should
yes,
we
comrade.
really? Should we really be attacking the monsters? And someone says guys, they're like, excuse me, you're using guys, you're triggering my anxiety, and then it just evolves from there. But I'm just trying to say, like the problem when you start down that road of telling people how you can and can't play a game, you just open the door always for it to and I do honestly believe D&D will self-cancel this year or very shortly, because you cannot do the math and arrive that D&D is a good game to play if you believe that if you believe in critical theory, there's no way to play D&D. And that's great, because I think like Walt was talking about 30 Days of Night and stuff like that, and independent gaming and things like that. Like, the people that say, fuck it, I'm just gonna have fun, and I'm gonna tell a good old gothic horror romance with Strahd there and the blonde feathered hair chick with the jugs out, and who cares? You know what? Men and women are going to buy that game and they're going to play the hell out of it and they're going to have fun. And when someone comes in and says, you're really awful for playing that game, they're going to be like, I don't remember ever giving you any kind of permission to tell me how to live my life. And there is no law that says you can do it. So get bent. And that's the thing we all collectively need to say. And if people would start saying that, if people would say no one cares, work harder, we would all start having a lot more fun.
No, 100% agree.
Yeah. I mean, I forget, I think my comment when I saw that thing on Twitter about the rules for how to run 5e Ravenloft, I said, remember when people used to have fun? And that got a bunch of likes because it's true, because I only played Ravenloft once. Jason ran it and it was fun. Ravenloft is a lot of fun if you're into stuff that would totally get you canceled now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Here's the thing that worries me, and this is about the future of D&D and everything else, is that I think everybody probably listening to us and everybody around the virtual table here are probably of like mind that says a lot of this sensitivity is kind of insane because it does take the fun out of things that we see as traditional fun. But I'm seeing mandatory training for teachers and all sorts of other things having to do with a lot of this not to make it critical race, but it is I mean some of these things where it is becoming a cult of the woke, and the cult of the woke is nothing more than making these 5e changes, making these Ravenloft changes as the proper way to do it, and somehow convincing people that that's the way it should be. And at some point in time, I think, will they become the majority? That's the thing that kind of frightens me, as a long-term concern.
The reality is they're not the majority. They're not. Reality is it's a vocal minority. Yeah, they're shaming everybody, and all everybody needs to do is just say, no, that's cool that you guys want to play that way. I 100% support that. And I think that's probably a fun game the way you guys are playing it. Great job. We're going to play it this way, and you don't have to worry about even participating with us or bothering us. And what we need to say is, we're approaching, and I think you can say this honestly to people because no one here is a racist or bigot wants to hurt anybody. No. You can just say to them, I think that we have the same goals, that everybody should be treated respectfully. We're just approaching it a different way. And if that's going to be a problem for you, then don't participate. That's fine. But where they cross the line is when they begin to say stuff like you're causing harm, or, it's always these nebulous terms. And you're like, just point to who's fetal and let me know. And they never can. Yeah. And okay, we're gonna play Strahd and the chick with the big nugs out.
Yeah.
I'll say one thing though, as far as that becoming the majority through essentially what you're saying is indoctrination. I see a lot of people just rejecting that straight out. It's like, this isn't fun. I mean, I do have hope for our younger generation because I see a lot of positive, good thinking and common sense. I think common sense is going to be the counterculture. I think this is the new counterculture.
We are just the Latin monks conducting the Latin mass in the Dark Ages. And that's, you just got to keep it alive until it comes back, or just like all the Star Wars expanded universe fans who kept Star Wars alive. And same thing with Star Trek. Star Trek was kept alive totally by the fans, and it came back to life. And so you just have to be willing to say, well, we're going to do our thing here, and we're cool with that. And they'll report you, and they'll go to Roll20 and all these things. And then you just keep moving around, you keep doing it, because at the end of the day, they still don't have a law that can stop you from doing what you want to do.
Yeah. And, with my campaign, if anybody's watched the streams, there's plenty of stuff to get us canceled. I mean, plenty. And it's not like a lot of people watch it, and we don't care if somebody wants to report us and get us shanked off. We'll do something else. We're not going to play it any different. The villains in the game are villains, period. Then there's going to be subject material that people are going to be pissed off to high heaven about. Go somewhere else. We don't care.
And I think what we did with Forgotten Realms, we unabashedly steered into that, and we just said, there is good and evil here. There are monsters. There is reality here, and we're not going to rewrite reality not to offend people, but also we're not going to offend people because we don't think less of anybody because of who they are, because of their identity. But what we do think less of is people who make stupid choices, like lobbing rockets into neighborhoods and trying to kill innocent people.
If people come to our games or your books and are offended, they were looking to be offended. They were looking for something.
Oh yeah,
It's like that guy who did that review on Forgotten Realms.
Oh my god,
that was great.
And in our after show this past week, we got into that. We covered it, and I did a big dramatic, ridiculous reading of it, and then we picked it apart. And then JR was on, and I think I made him a bit uncomfortable. I made some Nazi jokes about woke people being Nazis, essentially. But yeah, these people are out with the axe to grind. They want to score points in this silly culture.
My favorite reviews are when they say, and there's a few of them, they go, "Stop writing how awesome Rangers are." And I'm like, that's awesome.
And it's funny too, because there was a very interesting thing in the that started off in one of the different writer groups, and it migrated over to the Galaxy's Edge fan group, and I don't think it's made it over to the Forgotten Ruin fan group yet. But it was a soldier that was like, there are more than just Rangers and Special Forces and all these like high speed people in the army. I was a missile technician and blah 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 blah, and it's like it's like, bro, you're missing the point.
Mm-hmm.
The point isn't that they're Rangers and they're so awesome and all the training and blah blah blah, or the fact that a main character isn't a missile technician. One of the baddest ass dudes I ever met, right, was like literally could be Soprano in the Forgotten Ruin book. Right, because our Soprano when I was in was the cook, right? That dude was hella crazy on a skillet, right? First omelet I ever ate was made by him, right? And he was and he was just like, "What? You don't need a breakfast? This is a stupid. Get over here." Right? So I mean, you're introduced to this guy, and he's just a whiz on a griddle, and you're just like, wow, this guy is amazing. All right, right on. And you were happy to see him when you walked into the chow hall in the morning after like crazy PT, running the airfield, like doing combatives. I mean, all this crazy stuff. And you were starving because your body was craving calories because you were murdering the hell out of that workout. And then you get to the shoot house later that week, and he's like, well, I hope I do better than I did your omelet this morning. But like, excuse me, he was a maniac with a rifle in that shoot house, so like, you don't have to be, superhuman special forces, pre-programmed robot guy. But at the same time, nobody wants to read about you filling out 4187s.
Well, see, and that's exactly the thing. Yeah, and I'll even relate this to real life. Where you have jobs. I'll just go high tech because that's where I am. You've got folks who are, they call them admins, secretaries. You've got people who are engineers, testers, all the VPs. There's certain job classifications that will get more credit and more accolades than others. It's very rare that the admin is going to suddenly get the notice of the VP because it's just different job sets. But the thing that makes a story entertaining and a character entertaining is when they go beyond their expectations, and you're more likely to go beyond your expectations when you're actively doing something. Now, that doesn't mean the cook couldn't be that exact guy in a right situation, but it's less likely. And
if we look at properties like Firefly, right, you had examples of those characters all throughout the crew, right? Now, Wash was the pilot, right? And he was just, he was like, oh, I'm a leaf on the wind. And he was always doing crazy things with the ship. Now, if he was just ferrying people from like one starport to another, nobody wants to hear that story. You're just a taxi driver, having conversations, in which case go push that at the Cannes Film Festival, your galactic conversations, and that's fine. Because that's not what I want to read. I want to read about the explosions, the shooting and the blah, 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 right? And the same thing about their mechanic. Their mechanic was, a whiz in the engine room, fantastically at keeping the ship, but she was always keeping the ship alive when the ship was having problems in the middle of these grand adventures. If it's, well, we have to ground, the Star Bus today because this gasket looks a little worn. We're gonna have to replace that gasket. I mean, nobody wants to read that. So
no,
like,
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, even in the Forgotten Ruin game, if you look at the majority, because we see the Rangers getting their GUR on in Forgotten Ruin. Right. When I threw out the pre-generated characters, I said I didn't really get assign exactly who you guys were, but I said you guys are playing the air crew. So you guys, once you landed, the story really wasn't about Kuchenmeyer trying to repair a radio base station or anything like that, or it wasn't about Rock Powers flying a plane or whatever. It was about the characters having to take the experiences they had and use them to overcome the obstacles they were being presented. And I think that's what makes a better story versus just, blatantly like, well, you need to do more of this. And that's the problem that we're having with our culture now. It's, I love a story that makes sense. Like if you're in New York, multicultural, lots going on, a mix mash of different ethnicities and beliefs and stuff like that, because you're just forced to live together because you're crammed in there and you have no choice. Recently I was just watching. I love Kristen. Oh God, I'm going to forget her name. The lady who played the main Shield Maiden in the Viking series. Anyway, no, she's. I want to say it's like it's not Kristen Wiig. Kristen Winnick. Okay. Catherine Winnick, something like that, right? So anyway, she just started a new series where they're like in northern United States, and they're investigating a series of crimes because some teenagers they know happen to get involved. And it's a very diverse cast, but it's a diverse cast that makes sense for the area, the time period, the this, the that, just just a fantastic TV show. It's called Big Sky, and it's a fantastic TV show with a lot of like good character moments that belong in there versus, just something that was thrown in. Well, we have to have a South Pacific Islander character to address the recent uptick in rate. And it's like, no, if the character belongs there, or it's an actor that's just that good, put him in there. It's the same thing. I think that really makes Forgotten Ruin and properties about military life kind of like just different enough to where you're just like, all right, right on, because there are so many different people that come from so many different walks of life. It makes it a lot of fun to see what kind of things get into a unit. Like in Forgotten Ruin, you got Soprano, you got Talker, you got Tanner, Kurtz, and kind of like his relationship with Broom and stuff like that. It's really interesting to see like how a family gets made from all these different parts. It's really, really wild. So yeah, stuff like that.
It's people that you'll remember forever that, it's weird as a veteran, as you get older, you always see the guys that you knew as the same age. But like now me at 52, they're old men. They're not 19 or 20 anymore. Those guys are old. Some of them are dead. But the other thing I was going to say is like last week I went to the movies and Matthew McConaughey had to do like a special, advertisement before the movie started, telling me that the movie theater workers who were selling my popcorn and sweeping up the popcorn that I drop because I eat it like freaking gorilla. I take a big handle and then I try to shove as much of it into my mouth as possible. And then I like to take a big drink of Coke while the popcorn's in there and then chew it all up. And that makes me happy because it's only sweet. Meanwhile, Nicole's just eating one kernel at a time. And I've got it's all over my chest. And when I stand up from the street, I'm I look down, I'm like, what kind of fucking animal ate here? Oh, me. The guy that has to come in and do all that and sell that, and that butch chick who sold me my ticket and told me to wear a mask and I blew her off. They're all heroes. That's what Matthew McConaughey had to tell me. They're heroes. So
he's getting paid a lot.
Like all the dudes that went to Iraq and Afghanistan, and Adam Hartswick, they're heroes too. But so are the movie theater people. The movie theater people are heroes. In fact, the teachers who didn't want to work all year, except Rothman's wife, she did a good job. They're all heroes now because they stayed home and finished Netflix.
Everyone's a hero.
Yeah, no one's a hero, and that's what the society is all about. Is because, and if you look at what's happening in the military now, and why I think actually Forgotten Ruin is so important, because Forgotten Ruin is reminding a lot of people that this is what the military does, and a lot of soldiers right now are falling for what's trying to be done. Just get out. We don't want you anymore, and that's going to be bad. But I think they're going for it. But hopefully somehow this is teaching little guys, hey, go and be a ranger and all that kind of stuff. But the truth of the matter is not everyone is a real hero, regardless of what Matthew McConaughey did. So you're just doing your job when you clean up my popcorn filth. And I'm sorry about that. I'm an animal. But, that's just a job. You're not a hero. Teaching people, you're not a hero either. That's just a job, But real heroes are hard men who go do hard things and carve off a piece of their soul for the rest of their life, so that so that I can slob up my chair with popcorn. That's just the truth, and that's an uncomfortable fact in society right now. And so they don't want there to be heroes. They don't want there to be rangers. They don't want there to be SF. And so when that person comes in and complains, there are no missile crewman stories. It's not everybody's that. No, but those stories are boring because all you did was fill out forms in a binder and do systems checks, and you never fired a missile hanger. Whereas these guys were doing pumps all the time, and they have dead friends because they went and did these things, and then they came back from them and they became normal people, as normal as you can be, and that's the difference between you and them, and that's why we write stories about them and not you. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then I don't think you should be reading any kind of fiction, because I read Mediterranean noir detective fiction, and I am not a detective in Sicily. I don't lead an exciting life of fighting the mafioso, but I like to read about it. And if the Sicilian police agency would like to hire a writer who's pretty good at crime, they should call me, but they're probably not going to because my Italian's awful.
Mi dispiace.
Piacere, tu sei italiano? See, American speaking Italian.
I always enjoy the guy that walks up to me and goes, "Me scuse, dove." It's like, look, bro, stop. Oh my God, you're an American. Yep, so are you. This is going to be fun. But going back to what we were talking about earlier, where how the ruin kind of evolves things. One of the things that really stuck in my head. So for those who don't know, I've lived and trained in martial arts overseas, and just had a really incredible time doing that when I was in those countries. But listening to how the ruin evolves and stuff like that, just it really made me kind of wonder. It's you have the you can have the Ouroboros kind of controlling South America, but stopping the tide of evil from washing over totally into South America. Mm-hmm. I could totally believe an entire culture of samurai in the jungle, because in Brazil you had this huge influx of Japanese population.
Yeah, Peru also. Yeah.
Huge
Japanese population.
And they were building railroads, and they were engineers, and they were building facilities and factories and stuff like that. But they had this huge influx of those communities, which is how we ended up with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. and it would be interesting to see like like the samurai taken out of their normal context and put in that culture, just because, once again, how cultures can be transplanted. I mean, I was sitting in the middle of Camp Victory, and we were looking for this one building, and they have these little ponds just kind of like spaced all throughout the camp. And this one dude he had his flip flops off. He was sitting on the back stoop of this one building, and he's got his fishing pole in the middle of a fob in the middle of a rack. And I said to him, I'm like, hey man, do you know where blah 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 blah? He all he said was one word. He said ANO. He was like, ANO? And I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, hey, Anakaba. I'm like, hey man, where's this building? And he starts laughing. He goes, how's a white boy speak Tagalog? I'm like, what are you doing here? He goes, oh, big Filipino population here, bro. He goes, we chase the work. I'm like, that's awesome. I said, well, listen, we got to get to this building. Let's go have lunch later. He's like, oh, right on, man, right on. We sat down, had lunch and stuff like that. But it's just interesting how cultures can migrate from one section to another and bring their entire cultural kind of identity with them and influence the culture that is there. So I thought that would be kind of neat, like having like jungle dwelling samurai or something like that in South America. That would be kind of groovy. What do you guys think about stuff like that?
I would say now all you have to do is justify why they're simians.
Justify what?
Why they're simians.
Yes, like Planet of the Apes, straight up.
Yeah, it's Shogun Planet of the Apes in South America.
Oh my god!
You have these gorilla shoguns and these these orangutan blind drunken master guys and then the chimpanzee monkey army of ninjas.
No, that's really interesting, because I mean, sitting there cooking up the whole setting for our campaign for Eastern Ruin, there are so many different possibilities, and the Forgotten Ruin setting itself is so flexible. It's like walking down the aisle at the store, it's like, what if I did this? And then a buddy of mine, he's cooking up all kinds of stuff. Like, oh, we don't have enough time to cook up all this stuff. We have so much stuff, we'll never get to all of it. I mean, I hope we do.
There's a section in the RPG that's going to be coming out, and it's called Ruin Your World.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically, if you're looking for something slightly different than Forgotten Ruin as presented, here are some tips to kind of formulate what you need to do.
That'd be cool if there was a random table where you had you just put down all the different kind of societies, like American Indian, Aztec, you just listed everything, and that's one table. And then you had the humanoid table. And then they rolled on that, and then maybe you could think of a third table, the sort of political or cultural or whatever. But that could just be fun, just for goofing off.
There wasn't a random table, but there will be now.
I mean, in our setting, I'm looking at giving our elves a bit of an Asian flavor. Maybe since it's Indochina, they should have a French a little bit of French flavoring too. But then we risk going full French Monty Python, and then it might get.
How's your French accent?
I have to practice it a little bit. My buddy Bear's like, why is the dwarf talking like a Scottishman? I mean, you're in Indochina. Shouldn't he have a French accent? I'm like, dude, if I do that, it's going to be the Frenchman and Monty Python, the Holy Grail, and oh hell, maybe I made a mistake with the dwarf.
You rent the movie Vital, which stars Gerard Depardieu. And it's a really good movie. He plays a seneschal in a castle. It's very medieval, and it's probably his best movie. It's kind of a comedy, but it's also it's very much French, if I think I remember right. Not kind of medieval life, and it's fun from a D&D perspective. And that gives you. No, I'm just slipping into German now, but that'll give you a good French accent. I think in Forgotten Ruin 3, we just had the centaurs speak French, but they speak it with sort of like it's described as if a German dog that barked spoke French, it would sound like a centaur.
That was a cool scene. that was a really cool scene.
Yeah, that was fun.
Like I said, those two chapters broke me for that day. I was like, I have nothing left in the tank now. I'm spending.
You're killing me. You're killing me.
Hey,
Next week for the insiders.
That's right. That's right.
And then April 1st, which is really a week from Tuesday.
I mean,
right on.
I love being an insider, getting that little bit of the edge on everybody else, but then you can't talk about it for 2 to 3 months, like about Dark Victory.
Yeah. Well, you can talk about it in the insiders group. They like it there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I could read it, but I like the audiobooks.
I'm
like JR. Like rotten turds.
He's the kind of guy that's like, like you say, Bruce Willis was dead in Sixth Sense. They're like, oh, come on, I was going to see that.
It only came out in 1991.
20 years. He's dead.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, what did you guys think of Michael's character, like talking to the environment? Because the one thing about druids that's always been kind of weird in D&D is their connection to the earth, and like when you see it on something like what's the Legend of Korra and the Last Airbender or something like that. Mm-hmm. They always make their interactions with the environment very kinetic, very whatever, but like the druids always have almost like a telepathic link with the earth. I was trying to make that as like non-goofy as possible, so like he wasn't, you weren't getting like glowing moss Morse code or anything like that. What did you guys think of the presentation of it?
That was good.
It was interesting. It was different.
I'm gonna have to play with that more. I've forgotten that I had that skill. So yeah, it's one of those things I'm gonna have to exercise more going forward. But
I wish I could talk to the grass. I tell them to stop growing so fast.
Yeah.
I feel like there's paladin and anti-paladin. I'm like an anti-druid. I try to grow stuff all the time and like it just dies. And like I have a gardener at my house, and he comes and like and I have like a nice garden because I have a little townhome, and like he's built this hedge wall, and like he's done all this stuff, and like you're like, oh, you must be really good. I'm like, nah, it's that guy. Like if I plant anything, it'll die. And like I'll give him something. I'm like, I want this bougainvillea, and he'll be like, bougainvillea. And I'll be like, no, do it here. And he's like, that's a good place to plant the bougainvillea. And I go, come on, do it. And then I watch for years the bougainvillea fails to thrive. And he just comes every week, and bougainvillea is still not thriving. And it's clear that the blame has fallen on me. My reckless Gaijin decision to have bougainvillea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was trying to make it as interesting as possible, especially with the fact that you guys were coming out of the water, and you got two environments there that are just like, not heavily, forested, which is where the druids are normally associated with. That deep sense of the forest and stuff like that. That old Gaelic Celtic kind of vibe that they usually had. So trying to play that up was kind of a Johnny on the spot moment. So I was hoping I stuck the landing.
Yeah. So that does lead to a question. So like if we were swimming amongst kelp or something like that, would I be able to get the kelp to like entangle my enemies or stuff like that?
That's that's coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So like outside or anywhere where there's like any type of natural environment, like permeating something. I mean, we've all been in places like, basements and stuff like that, where you just see like root systems invading and whatever. Yeah. So if there's any hint of that at all, with some of the stuff that you have coming up, you'll be able to, cause huge barriers, cause stone to move, change the nature of stone to like from rock to mud and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff you'll be able to do. And like a lot of these environments that you can cause havoc with, As of right now, you can pass through without problem. So like if there's, like dense forest and stuff like that, and everybody else is cutting their way through it because it's that nasty, kind of like triple canopy style jungle, you can just walk through it.
Yeah.
So like some of the environments that you guys have throughout the Shattered Sea, that would come in very handy. You just haven't gotten there yet.
Right.
So
I'm curious about one thing.
Yes.
What was that Hydra, not Hydra thing that popped up out of the sand? Or is that spoiler territory for the party?
So, JR has asked me before. He's like, do you plan all this stuff out? And like I've showed him before, I have this huge notebook I carry with me. It's just full of notes for the game, right? So, that's a blank page. There we go. The other way, right? So
the camera's not focusing good enough. Damn it.
Sorry. Right. So, I had this huge thing planned out for the guy in all the red robes.
Mm-hmm.
So the original intent was that, he was going to hopefully get away from you guys, and you would find out that on this island, on Deathbreak Island, there was just a huge power struggle going on. So there's 3 factions on that island. There's the there's the Wrathghoul, which is the guy you were fighting with the red, and he wanted to kind of capture you guys because he saw you as these extra
troops,
supernatural, because he sensed Crowley, right? And that's part of the problem with Crowley's developing abilities. With his ability to talk and command the dead, he's broadcasting this out in an environment exclusively of the dead. So yeah, you had the Wrathghoul who wanted control of the island, but on the other side of the island, you had the Fang Lords, which is the Lords of Fang and Fog, and those are all those skeleton troops that you guys kept encountering, and they're holed up in that big, huge Cobra. What do you call it? The fortress. And then last but not least, there's a trio of ghosts that want to control the island as well, known as the Siren Sisters, and they're the reason the ships keep crashing. So there's this huge power struggle that was, going to play out between everybody, but you and the Rangers teamed up and just monkey humped the Wrathghoul. So that entire plot line had to get sidelined. But when the Wrathghoul was in trouble, he had minions that he could call, and one of those minions was that serpent dude, who kind of like helped him with because the Wrathghoul is like a higher form of ghoul. He's gassed, kind of like a super gassed, and it's you can't keep those things around normal people because they're almost like zombies for flesh. They want to feed all the time. And though they might look normal from a distance, you can see the feral features as you get closer. Very similar to how things look in the TV show presentation of Guillermo del Toro's The Strain. So, but you can't always just deal with people without these things taking a bite. So he had these creatures around that were meant for capturing, controlling people, and he was going to use it to help batter the Rangers until things went pear-shaped. And of course the Master Sergeant got involved. But once again, I'm sorry, what was that?
As he does.
Yeah.
I'm going to stab it in the back.
So yeah, he infused his I'm going to grab all my crayons and draw on the wall thing. So yeah, that storyline went away too. So, but then yeah, you guys got into the next part, which is they said before when you guys were dealing with the Myrrh that they might know where the Rangers are, and that's when you guys went to the island and you were negotiating help for getting the forge. They were like, "We have this. This is the location of your missing men." you know, and then you guys kind of jumped into that. So that's kind of like how that all played out.
So how badass was that snake?
He is pretty badass. So it's I
was waiting for him to eat Benny, so yeah.
he would have done it, except the Rangers were about to get involved, so they what do you call it? He decided to beat feet.
I think it was hilarious. Everybody was kind of standing by and watching this thing kick the crap out of it and getting ready to eat him, like, you know, well, bars.
Yeah, exactly. Because
I'll shoot him.
Well, that's the thing, because when we were doing the resurrection of Benny, one of the things that the gnomes that kind of came with him told everybody was, we think that when the ruin was revealing your friend, his soul and the soul of our dead brother were kind of commingling, because our brother who was normally chaos and 5 pounds of chaos in a 2-pound bag, started acting tactical and cautious and would plan things out where he never did before. And Benny is supposed to be playing a Special Forces Master Sergeant, and he plays it as though he has a drinking problem and a head injury. You know, he acts in no way acts like that character should be acting. So that's how I explained it away, so that it kind of made more sense, is when the ruin took hold of him and started changing him, he fused with this chaotic gnome that was basically not long for this world. And when the thing died, he just transferred all his essence over to Benny.
So, and we've got a red cap.
Yep, and now you have red cap.
Also known as Papa Smurf.
Well, he is now.
Can we paint him blue next week?
Well,
I don't think Jim would appreciate that at all.
We could just strangle him and then he would be blue.
Well, that's what the snake was going to do.
Never have I rooted for a snake so hard.
So is he back to Fuzzy, or what's his rank now?
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to ask the captain that one.
Master Sergeant, but I live to demote him.
I'm going to promote you just so I can demote you again.
Demote yourself.
Demote yourself.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was a Master Sergeant again, and I got lipping like, ooh. Sorry, Master Sergeant.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I mean, like, these deployed air-ground rescue elements and security elements, these guys are supposed to be like a SWAT team that travels on a plane and secures the airfield. So these guys are supposed to be highly competent, extremely capable, and tactically superior at all times. And that's just not Benny. Like, we had the session where you guys were first encountering that tree potion stuff. And, you know, there's this big skull of like a dead Titan in the middle of this, you know, or the spirit of this ruined island was invested, and they formed a skull out of it, and they were harvesting this potion from it, and blah blah blah. And, you know, you guys are kind of like spying on this whole thing, pulling a ranger element of doing a scout and a recon before enacting, and he starts singing like the national anthem. And like drawing attention to yourselves, and it's like, you know, and all the next thing you know, you got waves of poison arrows coming at you. So yeah, that was a little weird.
I mugged the goat herd trying to help us.
You know? What is it? You mugged the what?
That was like one of the first things where we knew there's trouble, when he mugged some goat herd that was trying to help.
Yeah,
that was the first episode. Oh my god!
Or what about the skeleton today?
Yeah, it's like,
and he straight up lies to me when I say to him, I say, you know, if you acted like this in games that you ran, you'd be dead. And he's like, no, I wouldn't. We played for a year with you. You murdered us every 10 seconds if we did anything incautious.
I wonder what it'd be like if I had it in my game. So I want to do that to myself. I already have Nay.
But yeah, so yeah, that's always been interesting. And then today, I mean, you guys had these mer that were helping you, and this merman kind of like shaman. is like, hey, listen, we've dealt with these things before. Let's give you guys a hand so you can get in and rescue your people. He's like, I'm gonna stab the shark thing in the back as it passes by, and I'm like, wait a minute, no, dude,
it's our own dude.
he's with you. So yeah, that came off a little weird. But yeah, so I don't know. The next session should once you guys get the Rangers, are you going to go for the Forge?
Yeah, it seems like a natural.
We must
natural
go for Forge.
next.
Now here's
How
the
else
interesting
would
question.
we create super whiskey?
Super whiskey. I was just going to ask.
want some.
What are you going to do with the Forge once you get it? Are you going to establish a stronghold, or are you going to turn it over to the guys at Broken Teeth because they've told you that theirs is gone?
I think we should establish a super whiskey stronghold.
Yes.
So if you want the super whiskey, we're the guys you got to come to. So you're going to start like your own distillery.
I think we cleared that fortress that we took, that little island fortress, and we should put the forge there, and then we should begin to create an island nation. And then a fun thing is we have all these characters; these are fun, but we have rangers now. We could actually make ranger characters. That could be
that'd be cool. You know what? With the forge, you could open up like a taco stand or a coffee stand for passing merchant traffic and build a whole little port. And
and you could open up a super whiskey stand next to the taco stand.
Yeah, nice.
People are probably tired
God,
of
I want to go to this place.
antics. They probably want me to ranger now.
So when you ranger, would it still be Prometheus behind the scene?
I don't know.
Well, it'll be interesting because this entire time we've been heading towards the Forge. So once we get the Forge, then what? Do
you go and start playing the Rangers that have now been rescued? Because anytime you add a force multiplier like that, there's you're bound to do crazy things to your environment.
Yeah. I think we got to go smoke that dude that's threatening us. We should send
Trago.
Yeah.
We should
I think
send Reaper team to smoke Trago. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think first thing, obviously,
give him XM25s.
Yeah, we need to do upgrades on all our equipment. So.
Yes.
Which you'll be able to do once you get the Forge.
I see the problem for Rock Powers is he doesn't want to modern anymore. He's having too much fun playing Jimmy Buffett.
Well, now you can make Margaritaville.
Yes.
Man, wouldn't that be great? Cheeseburger in paradise. Jeez.
Yep, you could totally do it here. Absolutely. But yeah, Trago's been a problem. He was first mentioned in the very first episode.
Yeah.
And you didn't meet him until like the 11th episode or 12th episode. And he was totally underwhelming to Rock Powers.
Well, I had to remind him that he wasn't as smart as he thinks that he is. But you only say that to people who are dangerous so that you can get them to maybe for a second check themselves, and then you use that second to punch them in the face.
You know how many weird emails and PMs I got about the orc with the good hair? With a hair that was like,
at the end of the day, hair is so important, and like everybody's obsessed about it. It's really not. But if you ever see like I always think of that picture where it's like if gas station knives were a person, and I always look at that. Like, man, that guy has great hair, because my hair empire is fading. So, but I used to have Vince Vaughn levels of hair. It was great.
Ooh. Do you have any of those headshots from back in the day?
I do actually, but they would compromise my new brand. So
you can share them in private.
I knew my hair was great one time when I walked by these two kids, and they're like, "Man, you have great hair," and I'm like, "I really do."
I used to get that too. Then I just started cutting it short. Nah.
Yeah, I had some serious sideburns too. That was great too.
Oh my god, I did too. Actually.
I know, and I can't grow facial hair, but I can grow good sideburns.
Hey, the best compliment I ever had was from an Elvis impersonator who said, "Hey man, nice sideburns." Like,
And now they've retreated, or now they've made a forward advance to under your nose.
Yes, they did. It's a mustache.
No man looks more beautiful in life than Elvis Presley in Blue Hawaii. If you've never watched Blue Hawaii, you should watch it. That's the most beautiful man in the entire world.
You know what? I'm going to show this to my mom, and she's going to like double down on reading Forgotten Ruin. Like, I'm going to do it because she'll hear that. She's like, okay, I like this man.
It's true.
Praise Elvis.
It's
true.
I
agree.
Like when you look at your mother, whoever your mother was, or wherever she's at in life, there was a time like women would faint around Elvis Presley, just flat out faint.
My mom met Elvis when she was 14.
Exactly. I went into an ice cream shop. Like, this Vietnamese kid has this like craft milkshake place here in Orange County. So I went in one night and it was all dark in there, and he was playing Blue Hawaii on the wall, and I sat there and had like a lavender tea milkshake, and I watched Blue Hawaii, and I was like, I never realized how beautiful Elvis was. He's like, I'm as straight as the day is long, but I was like, damn, that's a good looking man.
There's a story Jerry Reed once told.
The whole movie is him driving around like in a 56 sky blue convertible Lincoln Continental around Hawaii with 7 hot chicks. That's the entire movie. Like, geez, what a great shoot that'd have been.
Hell yeah. So as we start wrapping up things from our after action review, where we kind of meandered all over the place, but it was absolutely fun.
Let's see what we covered. Let's wrap this up. Let's see what we covered. We covered Jihad, Elvis, Ravenheart.
That admiring Elvis's beauty is good for both straight and other.
Exactly. Yeah, we covered it all tonight.
That's been fantastic.
We invented
thoughts?
a new race, Simian Shoguns.
Simian Shoguns. Oh my God, yes.
Macho Monkey Karate Death Cult.
Now, these Simian Shogun, are they going to be like the Drusik from Galaxy's Edge?
I don't know. It's up to you now. I mean, I just
you just throw these things out and see where they germinate.
Rock Powers woke up out of a fever dream, because he was all sweaty and drunk all the time, and he's like, I wonder if they have sake in South America. It was like a ghost, like a Shaolin baboon ghost walked by, and he's like, go to South America. And he's like, Japanese whiskey.
Oh my God. That was one of the first things we did is when I got back from my last deployment, my little bro kind of watched our apartment and all of our pets while we were over. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get him a nice bottle of whiskey. So I got him a bottle of Japanese whiskey. So, yeah, the black market that harvested my kidney so I could afford it. That was fun. But, yeah, he said it was probably the best whiskey he's ever had.
Yeah, I got a bottle for Doc Spears when he came out to visit me, and I'm like, "You want to try that?" And he's like, "I'll get around to it." And I'm all, "Rats, I want to see what you do."
So how about it, Sanokin? You were kind of quiet tonight. Any thoughts about the game?
I had fun with it. I didn't really do anything flashy, but I survived.
You got the job done.
I survived.
How awesome would it have been if he didn't say anything the entire time, and he's like, it was stupid.
It would be my usual. I'm always one in the back.
He's quiet and dependable.
Do you play clerics a lot?
No, only once. And instantly got poisoned and nearly died.
Our first sessions were questionable.
How about it, Sparky?
It was really interesting session. We saw a lot of new. We were teased a lot about what could be, what might happen, and just the main players. We got some pretty interesting insights into what they're becoming, and Wilbur talking to the seaweed was pretty interesting, and Crowley's continuing. Whispers with the Dead. Yes, that's true. And it was great. It's great fun. It's a great learning experience for us new-ish players.
Right on.
We had fun. We had a really good time.
We like to think you as cult members.
Hey, I claim membership in the Nick Colts Liberty Cult all the time. So
nice.
Yeah,
you do. We're having fun over at the Substack, saying all kinds of things that are going to get the FBI knock on my door.
Yes.
Like
we're going to do life together.
Like I read in a recent work in progress, I'm not a naturalized citizen. I am a willing participant. and if you want to be a willing participant, you should go over to nickcole.substack.com. You can catch all the craziness that Nick has been putting on. You dropped another chapter to kind of like the Substack Insiders today, right?
Yeah, that was actually just a short story called Swimming Pool of the Universe, and it is about a space marine who is experiencing a form of space marine PTSD, which is actually post-traumatic time disorder, because he was hit with a temporal displacement fragment grenade on this asteroid he was fighting for, and he now finds himself back in the world, which is running a supermarket on Mars, and he's having a hard time coping because he's got flashbacks of when he really up and saved humanity from the spiders, and he's looking at his waistline and his gut, and he knows he kind of needs to get back into shape, and because he was hollow program trained by a drill sergeant, and he has this form of PTSD, the drill sergeant shows up and starts making him get in shape. And it's probably the best thing for him, but it's a short story that mixes being both in combat on a spinning asteroid and running a supermarket. Where are you going to get that, folks? Where? Nowhere.
You're going to get it at nickcole.substack.com.
Yeah, that's where you get the jump.
It's the lit place to be.
It's the lit place to be.
Hey, thanks for coming out, everybody. Really appreciate you guys hanging out and talking a little D&D after dark. Thanks so much to everybody out there. We had Gray Fox 350 followed us, and Leon Atkinson followed us. So, of course,
How many
I can
do we have?
Follows.
Yeah. How many? What is the size of our army? Can we do anything? Can we destabilize the country?
378.
Yeah, we can take over Nicaragua with that. MS-13's mostly up here. We could do that.
God,
and they get benefits in California, so
yeah, that's why. See, what we do is we go take their country. That'd be the most American thing you could do. We invite all their most able-bodied fighters here, and then we go take their country.
I'm down with this plan. I even had the mustache for it.
Right. I love the zombie run. But yeah, so yeah, if we took over that country, we could just grow coffee there and get like stupidly rich.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, coffee and avocados. That's all you actually need to
Well, you'd have to not drink all the coffee to be able to get rich.
Fine, you're in charge. Oh my god! Yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming out and hanging out with us for D&D After Dark.